Status of the RV. Remember, it is the reinstate that will allow us to go exchange as the banks, not the in-country revaluation, which we are being told is planned between September-December, with a very strong possibility of the reinstatement in January 2026. But again, I have to say this with conditions I was told made by the US to Iraq. The dinar must be back on the currency exchanges for the banks to touch it. Today there is cause to celebrate, but also to caution us investors. We must remember that there are political motives behind the scenes working within Iraq, but also at the same time, the central bank keeps moving ahead with the financial reforms and its goals of financial freedom for Iraq. It is a growth process for Iraq, both politically and economically. To hit the world stage again is an uphill battle, but I am confident that Iraq is meeting the challenge and will soon emerge as a financial giant. In today's news, it tells us that they must keep the inflation rate low at all means possible, and this keeps the purchasing power of the dinar high. This is one of the main goals of the central bank. It also gives us a lesson on raising the value of the dinar, as remember that keeping the sole peg to the dollar is actually a counter mechanism, working against the raising of the value of the dinar. It hurts the dinar, not help it. It is like a sore thorn in there, as that they can't remove until they get off the de facto peg to the dollar. And they won't do this until they get off the petrodollar. In my eyes, the news today is all still very good news. This first article today, titled, "The Government is Responsible for Improving the Classification of Iraq's Sovereignty," to me displays much of what I just said about Iraq having to dig itself out of the sanctions mode and progress to a global entity. It shows the uphill battle that Iraq must face. I will quote from the article. The ministry presented the financial documents, which resembled the Iraqi currency. He added it combines clear and measurable goals, with raising distance plans to specialist areas, and direct coordination with major global trust classification agencies, including Fitch, S&P, Moody's, aims to improve Iraq's sovereign credit rating, as the SOL team pays special attention to strengthening government efforts, financial risk management, and environmental development. Our actions are in line with the government's economic reform plan. The statement said the comprehensive national strategy aims to improve the classification of Iraq's sovereignty, which will contribute to enhancing international confidence in the national economy and opening up vast opportunities of foreign investment, direct and indirect. What else is in the news? The next set of articles talk about the progress in the areas I have previously brought to your attention, as needed on my list of the 5 main issues. Be real and look at the real source of the problem. The real source is the petrodollar and sole peg of the dollar to the dinar. They know it and we know it. That is the real solution. But what do they then peg the dinar to if not the dollar? The IMF already has a basket of currencies for the new peg. But this peg coincides with a reinstatement. It can't be done unless the currency is traded globally. The second article is titled, "An Expert Warns Against Adjusting the Dollar Exchange Rate and Outlines a Solution to Address the Decline in Oil Prices." In it, economic expert Salah Nouri confirmed on Wednesday that adjusting the dollar exchange rate falls within the purview of the Central Bank of Iraq, noting that this measure is a monetary policy tool aimed at achieving economic stability and combating inflation or deflation. Yes, I agree with this first statement wholeheartedly. He goes to confirm to us that monetary policy is not just by the CBI alone, but also by the Finance Committee, part of al-Sudani's cabinet. I quote Nouri stressed to Al-Furat news agency the need to achieve harmony between the monetary policy managed by the central bank and the fiscal policy undertaken by the Ministry of Finance through the general budget. This tells us that the CBI will not and cannot just reinstate without both having consent of the CBI and the Finance Committee on the change. The economic expert goes on to say, he explained that raising the dollar exchange rate, i.e., devaluing the dinar, increases the amount of Iraqi dinars the Ministry of Finance receives from the central bank to cover budget expenditures. However, he warned that this measure leads to a decline in the purchasing power of citizens, especially those with limited income. In other words, a devaluation would cause inflation. He just said a devaluation of the dinar leads to a decline in purchasing power. Now let's get this clear. We all know by now that inflation does just the opposite. Isn't inflation the main driving force of the CBI? To stop inflation and keep it low? Keep prices low. Inflation now is only at about 1 to 2%. Why would the CBI want more inflation? Do these economists really know or care about the central bank, policies and IMF policies? If they do, they certainly don't show it in these articles. I do not believe the CBI will devalue the dinar. They have already told us there is plenty of money in the reserves, if needed. I don't see any crisis in Iraq, do you? Devaluations are a last resort like they had to do in 2020. Again, there is no crisis in Iraq. Remember too that in the recent prophecies, God is telling us that this chaos we are witnessing is coming to an end soon. What does soon mean? I do not know, but I can feel an end to it when the US indictments come out, and they are coming out in the coming months. August 21, 2025. In what is being described as one of the most historic financial events in modern economic history, the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, officially announced that the long-awaited revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar, IQD, will take effect tomorrow. After years of speculation, policy reforms, and financial restructuring, the CBI confirmed that beginning Friday, Iraqis and international holders of the dinar will be able to exchange their currency at a new official rate that restores strength and parity to the national currency. This monumental decision comes after the central bank reported substantial progress in controlling inflation, reducing the volume of currency in circulation, and stabilizing Iraq's foreign reserves and monetary policy. For Iraqis, this means a direct improvement in purchasing power. For global investors, it marks the unlocking of one of the most anticipated currency events in decades, from decline in issued currency to revaluation. According to the CBI's latest report, the amount of currency issued into circulation declined by 3.8% in the second half of 2025, falling to 98.4 trillion dinars, compared to over 102 trillion dinars in mid-2024. This deliberate reduction in currency supply was no accident. It was part of a carefully orchestrated strategy by the CBI to prepare the ground for a revaluation. When a central bank reduces the volume of circulating money, it strengthens the currency's underlying value by lowering inflationary pressures. That is precisely what happened in Iraq. Inflation dropped by 76%, falling to just 0.8%, a near stability level compared to 3.3% the year before. The CBI explained that this sharp decline in inflation was the clearest signal that the economy was ready for the next step, a full-scale revaluation of the dinar. Why the RV is happening now? Several converging factors pushed the central bank to make this announcement now. 1. Inflation control. With inflation near zero, Iraqis' purchasing power has strengthened. This made it the perfect moment to announce a new exchange rate that matches domestic stability with international strength. 2. Foreign reserves. Iraq has accumulated massive reserves of both hard currency, US dollars, euros, and yuan, and gold, securing a cushion that gives confidence to support a higher value dinar. 3. Digital and monetary reforms. Over the past 2 years, Iraq introduced new electronic payment systems, cracked down on illicit dollar smuggling, and integrated with international banking compliance standards. These moves made Iraq's financial system RV ready. 4. De-dollarization strategy. For years, the US Federal Reserve limited dollar shipments into Iraq to control corruption and money laundering. In response, Iraq pivoted to strengthen its own currency, reducing dependence on the US dollar.